I woke up that morning to the kind of silence that feels wrong. You know that gut feeling, that pressure in your chest when you instantly know something is off before your brain even catches up. That was me, standing in my hallway, staring at the spot where my car keys should have been hanging, except they weren't there. And I swear for a moment, I actually thought maybe I was dreaming or maybe I dragged myself out of bed without fully waking up. But then I opened the front door of my house, stepped outside barefoot, and saw the empty space in my driveway where my brand new car had been parked just the night before. My heart dropped, my lungs felt tight. My car wasn't there, my brand new car. The one I bought 2 weeks ago. The one I'd worked 3 years straight to afford. And before I could fully process the shock, before I could even decide whether I was hallucinating or being pranked, my parents casually said the most unbelievable thing. "Oh, sweetie, don't panic. We gave your keys to your sister." Tell me? Because I still don't understand. How would you react if your own parents handed your car over to someone else without asking you? Would I be wrong for what I ended up doing after this? You tell me. Let me go back a little bit, because none of this happened in a vacuum. I'm 24, working full-time, saving every spare rupee for years because I had this one goal in my head: buy a car that was mine, not borrowed, not second-hand, not shared. I had been taking buses, rickshaws, taxis, everything for so long that owning my own car felt like the ultimate symbol of independence. I grew up in a household where everything revolved around my sister. She's older, she's louder, she's dramatic, she's the kind of person who somehow always convinces everyone she's the victim, even when she's the one holding the knife. And I'm not saying that lightly. She has a talent for manipulation. She could make a stone feel guilty for being stepped on. My parents adore her, to the point that I've spent most of my life playing the role of backup character in my own home. I don't hate them. I don't even hate her. But I learned early on that fairness wasn't something I could expect. When I finally bought my new car, it felt like I'd achieved something monumental. The dealership even took a picture of me standing beside it, and I posted it everywhere, even though I normally don't post anything. Because that moment meant something to me. I paid for that car with my own money, my savings, my credit, my hard work. No one helped me, and honestly, I liked it that way. It meant no one could claim credit for it. And the way my parents reacted at the time should have been my first warning. They weren't angry or anything, but there was this weird tension. A subtle disappointment, like they wanted my big accomplishment to revolve around my sister somehow. They kept saying things like, "Your sister needed a car too. And you should let her use it sometimes. And you're living in the same house, it's family." But I stood my ground back then. I said no. I told them I wasn't comfortable letting anyone drive my car, not even them. And they laughed it off like I was being possessive, childish, selfish. But I ignored it. The car was mine. Fast forward to that morning. I stood in the driveway like a statue, staring at the empty space where my car had been parked. My parents came outside behind me, acting completely normal. My mom even yawned. I turned around slowly, still half convinced I was misunderstanding something, and I said, "Where's my car?" My dad didn't even look concerned. He just said, "Your sister needed it. She had an emergency." I blinked at them. My voice cracked when I said, "Why would you give her my keys?" And my mother said it so casually I swear I almost lost my mind. "Well, you weren't using it right now, and she needed it more." Needed it more. Those 3 words lit something inside me, something that felt like fire spreading through my entire body. I wasn't using it, so it wasn't a big deal. As if my hard work meant nothing, as if buying a car magically turned it into a community vehicle. I demanded they call her right then, tell her to bring it back immediately. But you know what my mother said? "Don't make a big deal out of this. She'll return it when she's done." That's when everything started spiraling inside my head. The betrayal, the disbelief, the anger, everything tangled together until I felt like screaming. And I did scream. I shouted, "You had no right." I yelled so loud a neighbor peeked out their window. They acted like I was the unreasonable one. They told me I was being dramatic. They said, "Family shares." They said, "We raised you, you owe us." They said, "She's your sister, don't be selfish." They said every guilt-tripping phrase in the book. And I just stood there thinking, this is insane. That car was my independence. That car was my escape. And they handed it to someone who had already crashed 2 cars before. I ran back inside because I couldn't stand looking at them. I grabbed my phone, called my sister. She didn't pick up. I called again, and again, and again, straight to voicemail. That's when panic kicked in for real. What if she crashed it? What if she wasn't answering because she couldn't? My heart kept punching my ribs over and over. It was the longest hour of my life waiting for her to finally call back. But when she did call, her tone was the thing that snapped something inside me. She sounded annoyed, irritated. She said, "Why are you blowing up my phone? I'm busy." I felt my fingertips go numb. I said, "Where's my car?" She sighed like I was asking her something stupid and said, "Relax, I have it. I'll bring it later." I swear I saw red. "You had no right," I said. "Give it back now." And she said the most infuriating sentence I've ever heard in my life. "It's just a car." No, it wasn't just a car. It was years of sacrifice, nights of skipping outings, months of stressing over savings, days of dreaming, and they reduced it to just a car. After that call, I went downstairs again. My parents were sitting at the table eating breakfast, completely unfazed. I sat across from them staring, waiting for someone to acknowledge how insane this situation was. Instead, my father lifted his tea and said, "We did what we felt was right." That was the moment I realized something. They didn't think I deserved that car. They didn't respect the effort I put into earning it. They saw my achievement as something that belonged to the family, not something that belonged to me. I didn't talk to them for the rest of the day. I just stayed in my room, pacing, checking the window, waiting for the sound of my engine pulling up. My stomach twisted every time I imagined my sister speeding, slamming the brakes, scratching the paint, parking it carelessly. My brain wouldn't stop spiraling. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sit still. Every tick of the clock felt like another punch. By lunchtime, my parents came knocking on my door, asking why I was making a scene. I didn't even open it. I just said, "I want my car back." My mom sighed dramatically and said, "Your sister had a doctor's appointment. Don't be inconsiderate." That word, inconsiderate, actually made me laugh out loud. Me, inconsiderate, for wanting the expensive thing I paid for wanting my property back, for not wanting someone else to steal my keys. Hours passed. I kept calling my sister. She kept declining.
I messaged her, "Bring my car back."
No reply. It wasn't until evening, dark, cold, silent evening, that I heard the familiar sound of an engine turning into the driveway. I rushed downstairs, barefoot again, and I saw her climbing out of my car like she owned it. She tossed the keys in her hand, didn't hand them to me, just tossed them. All casual, like she was done using a TV remote. And the worst part, I saw new scratches on the side. Not huge ones, but noticeable. She must have clipped something. I froze. My heartbeat was loud enough I could hear it in my ears. I walked slowly toward the scratch, touched it with my fingers, and I swear something inside me cracked wide open. I asked her quietly, "What happened here?" She shrugged, and said, "Someone parked too close. Not my fault." I felt sick. My throat was tight. I said, "You scratched my new car." She rolled her eyes and said, "Oh my God, stop being obsessive. It's barely noticeable." My parents walked out and immediately took her side. They said I was overreacting. They said, "Cars get scratched. It happens." They said it wasn't her fault. They said I was being dramatic again. I stepped back. I felt dizzy. And I realized something even more painful than the scratch on my car. They didn't respect me. They didn't see me as an adult. They didn't see me as someone with boundaries. They just saw me as someone who should sacrifice for their convenience. My sister handed me the keys by dropping them on the hood. Not placing them. Dropping. And I think that's the moment I snapped. But before I tell you what I did next, because trust me, it changed everything in our family, I want to ask you something directly. If you were in my position, if your parents gave away something you worked years for, if they dismissed your feelings, ignored your boundaries, and let someone damage your brand new car, what would you have done? Would you have reacted the same way I eventually reacted? Before I continue, before I tell you what happened after that moment, pause and tell me in the comments. What would you have done in my shoes? Because I swear, what came next turned our house into absolute chaos, and nothing was the same again after it. When I tell you that the moment my sister dropped those keys on the hood of my scratched, barely 2 weeks-old car, something inside me broke, I'm not exaggerating. It felt like years of being overlooked, years of being treated like the backup sibling, years of being guilt, tripped and manipulated. All of it came rushing to the surface in one overwhelming wave. I didn't even recognize myself in that moment. My hands were shaking, my vision blurry, and I could feel my throat tightening as if anger itself was trying to claw its way out of me. I picked up the keys slowly, staring at them in my palm, and the metal felt heavier than usual, almost as if it carried every bit of disrespect I'd been swallowing all my life. My sister smirked like she was the hero for returning something she shouldn't have had in the first place. My parents hovered behind her with that judgmental, disappointed expression, like I was the one who had done something unforgivable. And I realized something in that exact second. If I didn't take control now, they were never going to stop walking all over me. They'd keep treating me like my belongings weren't mine, like my achievements were theirs to distribute, like my boundaries didn't exist. They'd keep deciding things for me, and my sister would keep benefiting from it. I took a deep breath, forced myself not to yell again, because yelling only made them dismiss me more. Instead, I said, in the calmest voice I'd used all day, "Come inside, we need to talk." For a moment they all froze, like they weren't expecting that. My dad raised an eyebrow, my mother crossed her arms, and my sister rolled her eyes so dramatically I genuinely wondered how her eyeballs didn't fall out. But they followed me inside, because even they could tell something was different. I sat down at the dining table, placed my keys on the polished wooden surface, and looked at each of them. My mom spoke first, annoyed. "If this is about the car again, we're done discussing it." I didn't react. I just kept staring until she shifted uncomfortably. My dad spoke then. "You're blowing everything out of proportion. Nothing happened that can't be fixed." That sentence, "Nothing happened that can't be fixed," stung more than he realized, because it wasn't about the scratch. It was about everything behind it. I asked them one simple question. "Why do you think you had the right to take my keys?" My dad shrugged like the answer was obvious. "Because we're your parents," he said. "And because your sister needed it." I asked my sister why she thought she had the right to take something she didn't even bother asking for. She smirked again and said, "Because Mom and Dad said it was fine." That's when it hit me. My problem wasn't just them. It was the system they'd created around my sister her entire life. They had enabled her to feel entitled to everything, and she genuinely believed she deserved whatever she wanted. And I was the one expected to sacrifice every time. I leaned back in my chair and said something I never imagined myself saying. "I'm moving out." The room froze. My sister's smirk disappeared. My mom blinked. My dad frowned. I repeated, "I'm moving out. And I'm taking my car, my keys, and everything I own. Because clearly, as long as I live here, none of you will respect me or my boundaries." My mom instantly burst out. My dad added, "Where will you go?" My sister muttered under her breath, "Drama queen." But I didn't care anymore. The fear, the hesitation, the guilt, they all evaporated. I calmly said, "I already have enough saved for an apartment. I'm going to sign a lease tomorrow." And my mom said the thing that finally snapped the last thread inside me. "You're being selfish." That word again, selfish. Because I wanted my own belongings. Because I wanted respect. Because I wasn't okay with them handing over my car while I was asleep. I stood up, pushed my chair back, and said, "If wanting basic respect makes me selfish, then fine. I'll be selfish. But I won't be disrespected under my own roof anymore." My parents looked stunned, but I wasn't done. I looked directly at my sister and said, "And you, don't you ever touch my things again. No matter what our parents tell you, I am not your backup plan. I am not your private rental service. I am not your replacement wallet. I am not your chauffeur. I am nothing that you think you're entitled to. You don't deserve anything that belongs to me." Her eyes widened, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't have a comeback. That silence felt better than any victory I'd had before. My dad tried to stop me with the classic guilt trip. "After everything we did for you, you would abandon your parents." But I didn't fall for it this time. "Respect goes both ways," I said. "And you haven't given me any." I walked away from the table, locked myself in my room and packed. I packed for hours. Every shirt, every notebook, every photo frame. Every memory that belonged to me. I put everything into bags and boxes until my hands hurt. And as I packed, I remembered every time I'd been blamed for something my sister did. Every time I was told to sacrifice because she's older. Every time I was told to be understanding while no one ever tried to understand me. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on my door. It was my dad. He didn't sound angry anymore. "More tired," he said. "Son, don't go. We overreacted today. Normally that would have softened me. Normally I would have opened the door and apologized for things that weren't my fault. But not this time," I said. "I'm not changing my mind." He sighed and walked away. Later, my mom tried too. She said through the door, "We didn't mean to hurt you. You know your sister was struggling today." But I didn't respond, because I knew even if they apologized, even if they pretended to understand, the same pattern would repeat itself. They'd always put her over me. Always. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying the scratch on the car door. Not because of the damage, but because of what it symbolized. Carelessness, entitlement, disrespect. The next morning, before the sun was fully up, I dragged my bags out of my room. My parents were sitting in the living room looking exhausted, worried, maybe even regretful, but I didn't stop. My sister stood leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, pretending she didn't care. But I saw something in her eyes, fear. The fear that her endless supply of favors, excuses, and privileges was slipping away. She muttered, "You're being ridiculous." I ignored her. I walked outside, opened the trunk of my car, and began loading everything in. My dad came outside saying, "Least let us help you find a place." I said, "I already found one." My mom asked, "When will you visit?" I said, "When I feel respected." And then I drove away. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror, because I didn't want to see the house I had spent my whole life in. The house that never really felt like mine. The drive to my new apartment was oddly peaceful. The silence in the car didn't feel wrong this time. It felt freeing. I could breathe. I could think. I could exist without feeling small. I signed the lease, got the keys, and moved in. The apartment wasn't huge, but it was mine. Every wall, every corner, every breath inside that space belonged to me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like an adult. For the first time, no one could take something of mine without asking. For the first time, I didn't have to worry about my sister treating my belongings like they were props for her convenience. But of course, the story didn't end there. My parents called. My mom cried. My dad lectured. My sister texted me paragraphs about how I'd betrayed the family over a stupid car. At one point, she even tried to manipulate me by saying, "If you really cared about me, you'd let me borrow it sometimes." I didn't respond. I blocked her number. I let my parents keep theirs, but I ignored half of their calls. Eventually, my dad visited me at my new place. He didn't yell. He didn't guilt-trip me. He just sat down on my couch and sighed. He said, "You were right." I didn't know what to say. He continued, "We shouldn't have taken your keys. We shouldn't have dismissed your feelings. We shouldn't have enabled your sister." That was the first genuine apology I'd received from him in years. He even said sorry for the scratch on the car, even though he didn't cause it. He said sorry for not treating me like an adult. And then he said something that surprised me. "Your sister needs to learn responsibility, and maybe this is the wake-up call she needs." I didn't respond immediately because part of me didn't want to believe it. But something in his tone felt sincere. He left later that night, and slowly, very slowly, our relationship began to heal. My mom apologized too, though it took her longer, and she cried a lot while doing it. My sister, on the other hand, didn't apologize. Not at first. She stayed angry. She stayed defensive. She stayed entitled. But entitlement doesn't work when no one is around to feed it. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. Without me there to be the scapegoat, without me there to sacrifice every time she wanted something, without me there to blame, she had to face consequences for the first time in her life, and she did not handle it well. She argued with my parents, threw tantrums, complained nonstop. My parents didn't budge this time. They stopped giving her their car. They stopped giving her excuses. They told her to take responsibility for her own life. A month later, unexpectedly, she showed up at my apartment. She didn't knock for long, just one knock, hesitant, soft. When I opened the door, she looked smaller somehow. Less entitled. She said, "Can we talk?" I didn't say yes or no, but I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit. She just stood there, wringing her hands, staring at the floor. And then she said something I never thought I'd hear from her. She apologized for taking my keys, for scratching my car, for gaslighting me, for treating me like a backup plan, for assuming she deserved everything I had. She said she didn't realize how much weight she put on me, because she was used to our parents fixing everything for her. And when I left, she realized how unstable her life was without someone else holding it together. I didn't forgive her immediately. I told her trust wasn't a switch I could flip on command, but I told her I appreciated her apology. And over the next few weeks we rebuilt things, not perfectly, not completely, but honestly. My relationship with my family isn't perfect today, but it's real. Boundaries exist now, respect exists now, and no one touches my car without permission. No one takes my things without asking. No one dismisses my feelings like they used to. I learned something huge through all this. Sometimes you have to leave to be seen. Sometimes you have to walk away for people to realize your value. Sometimes the only way to break unhealthy patterns is to refuse to participate in them anymore. So in the end, was I wrong for what I did? Was I wrong for walking out, for refusing to be disrespected, for choosing myself over their comfort? You tell me. And if you were on my side, if you think I did the right thing by standing up for myself, then like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me your final thoughts about this whole situation in the comments. I'll see you all in the next story.